Vlog, engage. Number one, engage the vlog. I can't see heck. Some kid down there. Maybe I'll take a little walk. I just had to run Mike off. My next door neighbor over there. He's one of those guys that pretty much within the first couple of sentences of talking to him, you just can't win. You know, he's one of those guys that just every single time I've had dealings with him, in the first couple of sentences, he's real kind of gruff and really stoned on Oxycontin all the time, and but he's real kind of charges in real gruff and rude with a bunch of sort of bullshit opinions. And you know, just one of those deals where you can't win. So I hadn't talked to him in like a year or two, and anyway, I told myself, mental note, if he ever comes, he wanted something this time. And I cut him off at the pass and said, hey, oh, nice, a duck. I said, that's very nice, Mr. Man. It's like a realistic duck. But I pretty much I said, I'm going to cut this off the pass because it annoyed me so much last time I saw him. And I tried over and over again to be friendly, and he wanted something. He's broke, and but I immediately just told him I was busy doing something. Because I'm real friendly and I don't mind. I like having friends and talking to people and stuff, but I don't like people who just sort of want to preach the gospel of their bullshit reality to you and won't hear of anything else. They're real argumentative, you know. So, if anything, I mean, you know, one thing that the YouTube experience has taught me is that you're probably best in life to gravitate towards people who are, you don't want kiss asses who are agreeable, but you want people who are of like mind. And you know, a lot of the stuff that goes on YouTube, it's just kids having fun and stuff, and you know, it's not to be taken serious or personal, a lot of the crap that goes on. But you know, I've said it a lot in vlogs, you know, disregarding the noise, disregarding the bullshit, and you know, it's the kind of deal where I realized most of my life that I was surrounded by people who just were on different levels than I was at you know, at different things. And you don't want to be arrogant and think that you're better than everybody else or anything, you know, or an egomaniac, because there's plenty of that to go around in life. But it's kind of like I've only made sort of one communication. I have a nephew, and he was like a kid model. I have one sister. All her kids are real good lookers and have been, you know, in national ads for different things. He's a good looking kid, you know, and a pretty sharp kid. And I gave him a real Fender Strat, a custom one, nice one. Just he's still interested in music, just getting started, you know. And but I I was on Facebook. I'd never done their video conferencing before. I hate video conferencing for a lot of different reasons, and I don't watch TV or make phone calls or take phone calls, you know. And I clicked that button. I got on a video conference with him, and anyway, he's in college, which was my suggestion and my prodding over and over again for a couple of years. And anyway, I ended up talking to him via video conferencing, and his roommate was in the room, and these are like, you know, teenage boys. And I found myself sort of discussing. Somehow we got on something about physics and wave particle theory and so anyway, I found myself discussing advanced physics with his roommate, who was just starting like his entry level physics. And you know, all of a sudden I just said, wait a minute, you know, I'm wasting breath here. This kid is nowhere near even understanding anything I'm saying. And it's one of those deals, especially in physics, there's so much ego and arrogance. I mean, everybody wants to understand the universe and marshal its powers. That's why I think people like music so much, and musicians and producers, because it seems like they have some special powers, you know, which is not true, trust me. And but yeah, he was just so far from, it was such a waste of time. And I realized, oh man, my whole life I've been sort of entertaining the idea that the people around me were worth talking to on certain subjects. You know, if you know, if a person has a high degree of expertise in an area, it's silly of that, as you say me, for instance, it's silly of me to think he could even begin to understand, you know, the stuff I was talking about. And it's a waste of time it's unfair of me to sort of assume that, and it's a waste of time of his and mine, you know, because it's the kind of deal where, you know, you get into it, some of it turns philosophy, and for me that's based on years of you know, thought and study and writing and math and seeing what other work has been done, and to have a kid go, and you go, you know, I would say something like, well, yeah, but you know, the universe is quantized because of Planck's theory, so we have a crossover at the point that's the absolute minimum of where something can become not, you know, all that kind of craziness. And to have some kid go, yeah, but man, I'm thinking that the way things really work is, see, shit all connects together, so on and such, like I'm just saying, you know. I'm just like, you know, it's like I like to think that it would be a good use of time if I could chit-chat with Stephen Hawking, but it probably wouldn't be. That's just my ego, you know. Medical care. Yeah. Subject skipping. Mike reminded me of medical care. Normally I give people the good old college try, you know. With him, he just likes to argue, and I must admit it felt good just to start at the beginning by going, you know what, man, I'm really busy, and just realizing this is a zero-sum game, because it's annoying. But medical care, you know, we got into a discussion several years ago about medical care. By the way, when I first got here, he's basically on the dole, as they say, but has been for life and plans to be for life, you know. And I don't dun anybody for that, but he's just kind of a deadbeat who gets these prescription drugs from the government, so every month, and he's a drug addict, and I've done that. I was trying to tell him, dude, I spent a decade addicted to those narcotics, prescription narcotics. It's just a no-winner. And he would be coming over and literally nodding. They call it nodding out when you're stoned on narcotics, you know. He'd be like falling asleep, and then he'd wake up and go, well, you're wrong about that. And then, you know, I'd be, but he, you know, he asked me for something a while ago, in fact, and my food has gone up. I'll get back to medical care. It was costing me $200 a month to eat just 6 months ago. Now the same exact items have gone to $300 a month, and I can hardly keep myself in Mountain Dew and dollar a pack cigarettes, and but my philosophy of medical care is that it's the only boy, it's really quiet out here. It's still tonight, but it's the only thing that we're going to have to, especially as the population rises. It's an essential thing, and it's the only service where we're going to have to make it sort of like a public service where it's a one size fits all, one cost for all, one quality for all, which is excellent quality. There's no difference, and the police do this, but as an example, there's no difference in between, and the medical thing, there's no difference in between the cops being allowed legally to come to your house and hold a gun to say your daughter's head, let's say your 10-year-old daughter's head, and say, we need $700,000, your house, everything, or we're going to shoot your daughter in the head. If they were allowed to do that, there's no difference in that than if your daughter had brain cancer and you can't afford the treatment. And the people and I've been through this firsthand, I know, even with insurance, the best insurance, they have ways of coming up with ways where they suddenly aren't responsible. They don't have to pay. So I used to get specialized cancer treatment drugs, and some of those were $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 a bottle. It's insane, And the doctor would issue them to me, and then I'd go to the pharmacy, and they play this little game called pre-authorization, where, say, I need 500 milligrams a day of this one drug. They would only have it in separate 100 milligram tablets, and you couldn't possibly take 5 of those at once. They wouldn't have the dose I needed. So they play this little game. Then you got to go back to the doctor and get a special form that says it's okay if you get 5 100 milligram tablets at once, and not 1 500 milligram. They play it. It's all bullshit made up so they don't have to pay. But in our society, there's so many examples and cases of this where it's the only profession where we're going to have to standardize costs. I had people, like I had a bunch of MRIs, CAT scans, all tests done. The cost of a reasonably priced, let's call it an MRI. Let's say that test can be done easily for between $500 and $1,000, which is high. But I had several of them done at one time, and within a few years, and the prices they pretty much ranged to how much the companies could gouge the system, with I had the prices go as high as $5,500 for an MRI to all the way down to $300 for an MRI, and that's ridiculous. So I know all the questions of freedom and rights and this and that, but with medical care, we're going to have to get to a point too, as the population increases, either that, or I would be agreeable if they had euthanization centers where you can go, you're done with life, you're sick, you're incurable, society doesn't want to help you or pay for it, you turn yourself in and they help you, they put you down professionally and painlessly and make sure it gets done right. We're going to have to come to that point. Nobody believes in that, And in Europe, in some places they do, I believe. But it's the kind of deal where there's all kinds of issues involved, and don't write. And last time I said something about, I made a vlog and said something about, I was going to say Pink Floyd. That's a great name for a band. The psychologist, Pink Floyd. But anyway, so, several people said something about that, and my point was that those guys, Freud and Jung, were the Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud were the first guys. They were on to something, that a person operates out of instinct, and they were, in their later lives, both of them went horribly wrong and just were, but they both had excellent theories. But a person comes from really two places: instinct and awareness, and so the easiest way to say it was sort of, Freud was nothing but a coke addict who was obsessed with sex, in his later work especially, and had all kinds of phony research he did to prove points where he admitted he falsified stuff. But anyway, yeah, medical care. That's the reason why the United States, it's a ripple effect from the cost of a lot of it, the cost of just outright theft by huge corporations, but the cost of medical care rippling through society. I used to be able to go to my favorite doctor in Los Angeles in the early 90s. It was $35 cash. I've always paid cash a visit. And by the time I was done with Dr. J, like 15 or 20 years later, it was $375 cash a visit. So it went up like 10 times plus a little in, not that long. And, until we start seeing medical care as a human right and not like a luxury item, it does filter down. There's a book called The Walmartization, it's about Walmart of America, and all of those low-cost items at Walmart. You think, well, hey, I get them really low, but somebody's paying for that disparity in price there. And normally the way they work it is, and people will go, oh, Walmart's a good outfit, but, well, yeah, hell, I love Walmart. But the truth is that every time they come into a community, they cost. The taxpayers of that community pay the extra, and one of the ways for those low prices, it's shared throughout the community and the world. They don't provide adequate, inexpensive, and automatic medical care for their employees, so that wherever they move, it's called the Walmartization of America, and it lays all this out really clearly. That when they move into a community, the taxpayers in that community take care of the medical care for Walmart employees, so that they don't have to, and that's a huge part of the discrepancy and the low prices Walmart has and everybody else. And they also drive small businesses out of business, which I don't want to dick around at the local hardware store for them to special order me some. I love Walmart, but the point is, those low prices cost society in general. So there's no free ride. But yeah, medical care is crazy. The way they look at it here, it's sort of like I said in another vlog, if you can't afford medical care in this place, and I think eventually it will be. First, but if you can't afford it here, they're like, boy, we'll provide you with a coffin. That's our promise to you, and that's okay. I'm glad that they'll even do that, although I don't want one. I'll be scatter my damn. Let thermodynamics take care of my ass. Just lay my corpse out on a. Put me on a pile of strats, burning in like Viking style in the middle of a river, and set it on fire. But I think that we're going to have to, people on the world and society, we're going to have to come to a point where people do medicine for a reasonable profit. It was getting cold out there. A reasonable profit included, but a lot of doctors, most, go into it thinking they're going to insanely gouge people and the system. And they do, and So I think that at some point it's going to have to be where doctors their salaries are capped, and society does something to encourage people who love, and it's an art. It's also a hard science though. But society should encourage people who love practicing medicine to go into medicine and accept a reasonable sum, a great wage, but not astronomical wages, because there's no difference in that than, like I said, police being allowed to come to your house legally and take hostages and force you to pay. The thing that blew me away, I come from a small community, and when I was a kid, you got sick, and Doc Arnold would take you in, and always, and make arrangements or treat you for free or whatever. We never had to use him for free, but I know he'd do that. But when I was really scared and sick in Los Angeles, I had one doctor say to me, okay, well, we figured out what's wrong with you. Now I want to talk about how you're going to pay for it, and then we'll talk about what we're going to do for you. And I thought, boy, you're the epitome of evil. You really are an evil, evil individual. I think I was reasonable. That happened a couple of times. One of them, I just told him that to his face. I told him what a piece of shit he was, and that I ought to just bash his skull in and let him seek medical care. And because it's something I'm passionate about. But yeah, I'd never heard that before. Well, first we're going to talk about how you're going to pay for it. Then we'll cover what's wrong with you and what we're going to do. And it's like, wow, just how greedy does one person have to get? And I'm not saying that doctors don't deserve to make money and get paid, but that should be separate from all other professions and issues. Nobody's going to die if they can't afford my next album, if I decide to price it $1,000 or whatever. It's one of the few professions, if not the only one, where it needs to be seen as a human right, and it would stimulate the hell out of the economy to have an entire sector of the economy that does nothing but medical care professionally, and sanctioned by the state, where it's not costing anything, because those people are paying taxes back and also stimulating economies. That's one thing that people don't get. The Social Security system here in the United States, or the welfare system, well, everybody's like, get them off goddamn welfare, and even my mom, who lives on Social Security and social welfare programs. Oh, cut everybody off that, this whole Republican thing. And it's like, well, no, wait a minute, Mom. So you're saying you want to be homeless next month and you don't want to eat? Well, no, I meant them other, it's like, dude, get a grip. But the truth of those things is economics is cyclic. It's just like, a weather system, or I love thermodynamics, so it's just like that. Energy's always going in these cycles, and the U.S. can't stop the Social Security or welfare system, because our economy would nearly collapse. It would ripple through. Let's say that my mom couldn't afford to pay her rent next month, and millions others like her. Well, those landlords wouldn't have the money, and then the people that they buy stuff from wouldn't have the money. They wouldn't be able to go to Walmart and support them, and so it would ripple through. So, even though it sounds like a horrible, evil thing or whatever, sometimes having things administered properly by government, which can be iffy, but is good. And they can't, those things, the people who get food stamps or whatever go to Walmart, they buy a chicken with it, they spend $1 on chicken. That then supports Walmart buying that chicken from that company, and then those people who work at the chicken company have money to go buy soup at other companies, and it ripples on and it goes round and round forever, and then everybody pays taxes on all of it. So it's in our human nature for us to go like, when we think somebody's getting a free ride or whatever, to go, oh hell no, you work, mister. And that's true, and that's a good value to extol, but at the same time, it's just not that simple. I think somebody once said the poor are always going to be with you, and it would probably be a good thing if you helped them out. And by helping out the poor, the U.S. actually stimulates its own economy and makes money. So it's a cycle. In optimum circumstances, it'd be great if everybody could have a job and work, but that's not, and contribute, but that's not the way reality happens. So I think that we need to stick in life and in the world, in government, we need to stick with not pretend. We have to stop pretending that things are different than they actually are, and man up to the fact that this is how things really are, and deal with that, and sort of absorb that. But yeah, medical care is the only thing that it should stand alone and above all other goods and services. And the only way I see to do it, when my friends shake at the corner store because his medical care goes up, suddenly he's got to charge me more for my freaking Mountain Dew. And round and round it goes, So it's a cycle, and medical care is just it's a thing that nobody can do without, and they know that, these medical companies, hospitals, insurance companies, doctors. And so it's a tricky thing, but there has to be a point where doctors' salaries are capped. They're only allowed to make so much money, and that way we'll attract people who love medicine and love helping people, and get rid of these vultures. And there's so many factors there, but it can be done to a point where everybody has it as a basic, just like water, a service that's affordable. Because right now it's the same thing as, like I said, cops being allowed to go to your house and take hostages for money. They know that, and it's not administered properly. But Mike reminded me of that, because he's sort of living off the system, and I had to run him off. Oh, and he's selling his pills for ridiculous prices, like 80 milligram Oxycontin, $80 each. You can pick them up for, I used to get 1,000 a month for free. It's like I don't know, but it was good to run him off. He came over wanting, I could tell he was wanting something, and I just immediately was like, Mike, I'm busy. After many times of trying to be cool with him. Makes you feel good about yourself, superior. Not really. It's like, I'll give a guy many chances to be cool, but if it always, within 2 sentences, he's like telling me how stuff is, and how wrong I am and how right and clever he is, that's when I just like to hit the kill switch on bullshit conversations like that to start with. Oh man, these vlogs are for what it's worth, and in my humble opinion, and so on. So what was my other term there? Anyway, vlog the hell